Hey, everybody. Come on. I found it. The show's about to start.
I'm Rod Harder, and he's Vinny Dappio, and you're listening to the Specialty Marketing Consultants Profit Lab podcast. Great to be with you again. It's Rod Harder and my confidant, Vinny Dappio. How are you, buddy?
Great. How are you today, Rod?
I'm good. Good.
What are we going to talk about?
Well, we're going to cut right to the chase because we know everybody's busy, but this is a very important subject. We're going to talk about headlines today.
Oh, headlines. The attention getter, the hook, the grabber.
Yep, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And, people listening to this might be at any given level of understanding headlines, but we're going to go back to the building blocks of basic direct response marketing. So a headline, what is it? I'll start with a quote from the great David Ogilvy, who said, on average, 5 times as many people read the headline as read your body copy. If you don't sell your product in your headline, you have wasted 80% of your money. Now think about that. You don't want to put in a lot of time, work, research, anything and everything to put out a product or service and have a milquetoast headline. So, buddy, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a very valid point, Rod, and just to kind of hitchhike on it, there are two points you got to get across in your headline. Number one, what's this all about? And number two, what's in it for the reader? If you could cover those two things in a short headline, you've got them.
You do. And you can't say everything about every situation in a headline, but you can get their attention. And I often use the example of you're busy and you're walking into a restaurant in the morning and you've got your mind on who you're going to sit down and meet with, and you just happen to catch, the newspaper stand on the way in, and there's a headline there that stops you in your tracks, and you reach in your pocket to get 50 cents because you cannot get past what it is. It may be something about sports. It may be something about, politics or government. Whatever that headline is, if it reaches you, it stops you in your tracks and makes you say, I need to know more. And you want to do that in a smaller version in your business.
And you know that it works, and it's proven, and it's not just in direct response marketing. Newspapers have been around for centuries, and for hundreds of years, in order for these people to make sure you purchase their newspaper, they had to hit you with a good hook. What's one of the most famous pictures in American history? It's the picture of Harry Truman holding up that newspaper, and what does it say? Dewey defeats Truman. Right. And now how many people probably went out and bought that just for the headline?
Exactly.
They wanted to own a piece of history.
And go ahead.
Headlines carry so much weight. It's absolutely the success or failure of your copy.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And in that particular case, that headline is famous because they were wrong. And they got too excited and printed it before it was ready. It's just like the famous Chad thing with the who was it, Bush and Gore. When they got too quick to count I think many of the networks declared one of them the victor, and what they have to do, they had to go back and count all those Chads.
It was the state of Florida. The state of Florida said, hey, guess what? George Bush won. And then Al Gore's people came out and said, wait a minute, you stopped people from going to the polls. It was because of that headline that they now changed the entire electoral process.
Exactly.
The media is no longer allowed to do any prediction of winners until the polls are actually closed.
Right. The point Vinny just made is, you got to be careful when you put a headline out there. Make sure what you're saying is correct. But most business don't do any of that. They are afraid of headlines, and for that matter, they're afraid of direct response marketing. Some don't have any experience. Some don't know how to do the basic testing. They have little or or no marketing in their business. So you're listening to this podcast because you're making a decision that it's time to change. And we value your ears, your time, and the investment you're making here. So today, let's cover some things about headlines.
One of the things that we've just proved also, Rod, is whether it's good, bad, or otherwise news, they work. They get your attention.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of different types of headlines. You know, there's the curiosity headline. There's a headline that's specific. One of the more popular ones that a lot of small business owners use is how to. You know, that can be a headline in a report. It can be a headline on your website page. It has any number of applications. Let's talk about a couple of simple headlines. These are basic ones. Mm-hmm. 7 easy tricks to teach any dog. Now, there's a headline if you have a dog, and my daughter happens to have one right now who needs some training in the worst way. But there's a simple headline for a free report or something. Here's another one. More distance, more control, lowest price. Now, if you're a golfer, that's probably going to get your attention because it's short, it's to the point, and it says exactly what any golfer wants. More distance, more control, and lowest price. They don't want to pay an arm and a leg for a driver. So those are a couple of basic examples. And also I want to tell you that we're going to put the top 100 headlines of all time on our website for you. So you can go back to our website when you're finished listening to this, and it'll be there for you. You can download it, and it'll give you a model, a template, because the beauty of headlines, you might sell fertilizer in a hardware store, or you might sell hairdressing products, or be a dentist or an attorney or a plumber. It doesn't matter, because a good headline you can plug and play. There are certain verbs, nouns, and adjectives in there, and you just take out certain words that fit your business, and you don't have to start from square one.
And Rod, you touched on a valid point before, and what I'd like to get across would be, before you even think about writing your headline, make sure you're targeting the right audience with it. Right. The examples Rod gave earlier about the golf club or the dog training, you want to make sure that your headline is targeting the audience that your copy is trying to reach. So you might say to yourself, well, how do I determine my headline? Well, one of the easiest ways is write your copy first. And if that copy is chock full of rich content regarding how to bake chocolate chip cookies, well, you don't want your headline to be about oven specs or which pan to use. You want your headline to be the grabber of what's this article about and what's in it for the reader. So your headline might read something like, the greatest chocolate chip cookies you ever tasted. It puts both what's in your article and it addresses your audience. And hitting the proper audience is key.
That's a great tip, because you can go through the copy that you write with a highlighter or a pen and read it once or twice, and the one sentence that comes out, jumps off the page, that sort of describes what you're saying, that can very well be your headline. But you just want to represent your business and give your piece, your marketing piece, the best opportunity to get somebody's attention. It's just like when you're outside and you hear a kid in the schoolyard whistle. They're trying to get somebody's attention, and that's all you want your headline to do.
Don't feel overwhelmed at this point, because when I first started doing this, my big misunderstanding was just like painting a room. You start at the top and work your way down. I thought the first thing you should do is write your headline, but I was way off. The first thing you should do is actually write your copy. Then read it and find what you believe to be the most important benefit that's in that copy, and now build your headline around what's in this copy and what's in it for the reader.
I think a good example of that is you'll often hear an actor on a talk show talk about a movie they're making, and they'll say, you know, we've still got a working title, or we started with this title and we changed it to this. A lot of times the whole movie is filmed before they land on a good title. I believe writers work both ways. I've tried it both ways. I prefer what you just said, Vinny. You write your copy, you get into the flow of it, the theme of it, and sort of feel a headline come out of that process.
Yeah, by looking for what you feel is the most important benefit to the reader that you wrote about. and turn that into your headline.
Right. And some people just they just work so hard and slave over a headline, and it doesn't really have to be such a laborious, painful process. One of the most famous headlines ever written is very simple. Do you make these mistakes in English? It's probably 80 years old now, and it's just a great headline that describes, a course that some company back in, I don't know when it was, the 20s or 30s, put a course out, and it was published in the New York Times. Do you make these mistakes in English? And then the guy just goes into the copy. So it doesn't have to be complex, but it is very, very important. And when I write copy, often I will write 25 or 50. I've written as many as 100 headlines before. Sometimes it'll take a day or two to come up with a good list of headlines, but I'll use a template. I'll use a list of famous headlines. A perfect example, leaving the grocery store. If you look at the checkout stand, what do you see there? Cosmopolitans. What's the other the magazines that are always there? The ones, Man Eats Own Head. What is that?
Oh, the tabloids. The National Enquirer, the Star.
Everybody laughs at that, but you know what? The Enquirer copywriters are some of the highest paid in the world because they come up with these ridiculously crazy headlines that make people buy those damn papers. It works.
I think one of their biggest expenses is not actually making the paper, but paying their attorneys.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of that goes on. They pay those attorneys because they're selling newspapers.
Right, yeah. Because their headlines work.
Yep. John Carlton is one of my favorite headline writers. Now, he is, he's the guy that used to be snuck in the back of ad agencies when ad agencies couldn't come up with their own products after they'd taken their clients' money. They'd literally bring John Carlton in the back door of these big LA ad agencies. And one of his most famous pieces that he wrote, I'll read it for you here. Amazing secret discovered by one-legged golfer adds 50 yards to your drives, eliminates hooks and slices, and can slash up to 10 strokes from your game almost overnight. That's a headline.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, that's a headline. You could take that very headline and plug and play whatever applies to your business. Sure, you could shorten it, but it's there as a model. And you can hop on the internet and type in, the headline list and famous headlines. Build yourself a swipe file. I have a room full of these things because I do it for a living. You only need a little space on your computer where you have, a couple of places that you can go down and sort of tickle your memory on what you want to say. Don't start with a blank canvas. You don't have to.
And just to get back to the National Enquirer headlines, there's a really important point here, folks, and that is you must keep it honest. You're never going to advertise or make a headline of anything. That's not true. Although nowadays, competition's so high in the cable news network, I wouldn't be surprised to hear one of them claim, the Earth will explode in the next 15 minutes. We'll have our crack reporter, Kitty Curry, on the scene right after the explosion.
Right.
We're going to bring you exclusive coverage of the devastation. That hook or headline, it's got to be positive, upbeat, and honest about your product or your service. And it's got to be something that's going to immediately create a bond between you and your prospects.
Yep.
You could keep it light and comical, or you could hit home with some serious positive facts. It's up to you. Just be sure it's attractive and about the person that's going to read it.
Gary Bencivenga is one of the most successful and highly paid copywriters in the history of writing. He worked on Madison Avenue for one of the big agencies up there. He's since now retired, but Gary Bencivenga says you've got to show proof. You've got to demonstrate proof because you can say anything, but if you can't back it up, if your headline says one thing and in your copy or in your audio or your video, if you're not backing up specifically what you say, throw it all away because people aren't going to buy into it.
And another question people might ask if you're just starting out in this direct response marketing is, well, who writes these hooks or headlines? You do. You were smart enough to start your own business. Nobody knows your business better than you. So something moved you or gave you that passion to get things going. That was your hook. So now you can make this a success, so you went out and did it.
Right.
Well, put that same drive in your headline. You know, if you're stuck for an idea, sit with your employees, get their input. If you haven't any employees, sit with friends or family members. They'll be more than happy to give you feedback and input. When was the last time you asked someone for their opinion? They said, no, I'm not giving it to you.
Yeah.
If you're stuck, you can also give us a call or drop us an email. We've helped others, and we can help you.
Yeah, you can join a local mastermind group in your area or a marketing group. Get on some of these websites and check out direct response marketing meetup groups or mastermind groups. This is hard enough to do with a group of people. The last thing you want to do is try and tackle it on your own.
Oh, amen to that.
Hey, here are a couple of humorous headlines, which we do not recommend you do unless you know your audience really, really well, but these are two funny ones. New York Post headline years ago, headless body in topless bar. That's a great one. And here's another one I like. Seagull with diarrhea barely makes it to crowded beach on time. That's a good one. Okay, so let's get back to the serious part of this. That was a good. That was a good.
That one.
Yeah. All right. So a couple of other. Avoid vague numbers. Vague circumstances. Be specific. How I lost 14.7 pounds in only 2 weeks. Again, you got to be able to back it up. Whatever you say.
Or you can turn that around and say, would you like to lose 14 pounds in 20 days?
Yep.
See, it's the person that's going to determine what the headline looks like is you, and the way you come to that determination is knowing your audience. Where am I going with this headline? Who am I trying to target? You're not going to target a Weight Watchers commercial to a bulimic audience.
Right.
You understand where I'm going with this?
Sure.
You're not going to be an optometrist advertising in magazines that are, sell Braille.
Sure. Well, it's this three-legged stool, right message, right audience, and delivered by the right medium. So you can't be close in any of those three areas. You got to have all three. It's like the combination to a safe. So Vinny's right. Right message, but you got to have the right audience.
Yes.
Don't send the wrong good headline or letter to the wrong audience.
And also be sure that your headline matches your copy. That goes back to what we said a little while ago.
Sure.
Get your copy together first. Make it strong. Make it content rich. Pick out the best benefit in that copy.
Yep.
And find a way to write a headline that tells people what this article is about and what's in it for you.
Yeah. And if you'd like to get more information on this and other subjects, buddy, we do our own offline printed newsletter, and anybody listening to this, if you want to send us an email or write us at Specialty Marketing Consultants, we're happy to put you on our mailing list and give you a copy of our free monthly newsletter that we send to all of our clients. So feel free. It covers way more than just headlines. It's all about direct response marketing, and we have a great community of people and feedback. So hop on board and be a part of it.
And let me do a little advertising here quickly. Remember, if you want to listen to this podcast again, you could just go to specialtymarketingconsultants.com, and one of our menu tabs says podcast. Just click on it, and boom, there'll be a drop-down box, and in that box it's going to give you some options. It's going to say, would you like the episode information? Would you like to see more episodes? Would you like to share this podcast?
Yep.
Now, also, while you're there, you'll find the free newsletters, you'll find free tutorials, and you'll be able to contact us through email or telephone call with any questions you might have regarding writing a good headline.
Yep. And, of course, if you have an iPhone of any kind, you just hop on iTunes. And if you use an Android or some of those other smartphones, you can go to Stitcher Radio and pick up our podcast there. So,
hey, that would make a great commercial. iPhones, iTunes, I'd like to tell you, folks, today and today only.
I've got a couple of tips for people who are starting out writing headlines. Use interesting adjectives. Words like effortless, painstaking, fun, free, incredible, essential, absolute, strange, words like that. Use words that create interest. Words like reasons, why, facts, lessons, ideas, ways to, and tricks, secrets. You can say things like that. You just have to back it up. Provide proof what your product or service will do. Whatever you say it will do, make sure you back it up. Your headlines.
Exactly. Aren't some of these going to be in those 100 headlines we're going to post?
I'll put
soon?
the tips in there. Yeah, I'll put
Good
the
idea.
tips in there, and I'll be sure you get those 100 headlines. Heck, I may even add more than that. But you can use those headlines as printed off document that you can have as a template on your desk, and plug and play, baby. Don't start from scratch. No blank canvas here. All of these ideas came about 100 years ago. All we're doing is converting them into the 21st century for the internet and all the technology we have today. But these principles are not new.
No, they're not. But the one thing they are, they're proven.
You betcha.
And the funny thing is, a lot of folks don't get into this type of marketing because they're not aware of it, and they haven't seen the benefits of it because they haven't tried it.
Well, buddy, I think this was a very fast-paced, informational, and helpful podcast. Anybody that listens to this is going to do better work with their headlines.
Well, we have to give it to the folks that way, Rod, because, you know, they've not that this isn't important. We hope that you've gotten enough out of this that you'll feel, I want to listen to the next podcast. But we know you folks are pretty short on time because you're in your own business, and being in your own business is not easy. And today, time is money. So I want to thank you for letting us borrow your ears for a little bit.
We enjoyed sharing this with you. We'll talk to you soon. I'll just bid everybody a great day.